happy Tuesday. We are in a whole new week now. It is April 8th, Tuesday, April 8th. The last video I shared with you a bunch about what we were doing for double-digit addition and subtraction and how to teach that. So in this week's video, I thought I would just take you along, pop in for a few days and share what we are up to. The three main things we are learning is right now in phonics, we are going over words with 5 sounds, so consonant blends at the beginning and sometimes the ends of words, also talking about digraph blends, how those can go into it. And then next week in this foundations unit, we'll also talk about those 5-letter words and add some suffixes onto them. Right now, we've really only learned about the suffix S, but we will be learning about suffix ED starting next week too. In math, we are finishing up our numbers to 120 unit. So this is another place value unit, but with higher numbers, especially focusing on those numbers in the hundreds. And then in writing, we just started our opinion writing unit. So I thought over the next few days, I would kind of show you a little bit about what we are doing and some of our favorite activities for each of those lessons. I just went ahead and laid out the morning work for the day, and now I'm gonna make a couple copies, see what's on the agenda for today, and then I will pop in and share what we're doing. All right, so let's start talking about writing. So last week we finished up our poetry books for the first, week and a half of April. They came out so cute. Here is a little video of me flipping through. One of my students, they made a whole little poetry cover. They made a shape poem, a color poem, a cinquain poem, feelings poem, sensory poem. So pretty much each day we walked through our poetry slides and the poetry lessons, and we would learn about what each of these poems kind of looks like, what parts it needs to include, and then we would go practice kind of writing one together. I would model it, and then they would write one on their own with their own topic each day. I always love how these come out. It's a fun and creative writing assignment for them, and then parents also love them. We took them home last week, and I had many parents email me back or respond on Seesaw and just say how cute their books were and how much they enjoyed reading them with their kids. So very, very cute. Now we are heading into our last big genre of the year, which is going to be opinion writing. So at the beginning of the year, we were piloting EL education, and then we started our HMH into reading pilot. And pretty much all of the writing for a very long time was focused on informative writing. So supplying facts and supporting details, reading different texts, and then sharing what we learned about it. And then for the middle of the year, we kind of dove into personal narratives and then other narrative genres. Now we're really going to take all of that and we are going to write opinion writing, which is not normally how I teach it. I usually teach opinion after personal narrative and then end with informative writing. Or I've even taught opinion at the beginning of the year just because students so easily and quickly are able to share their opinions. But either way, it's always nice because whichever writing you teach last in first grade is usually one of their best because their writing skills have just improved tremendously throughout the year. So let me open up the slide so you can see what these lessons will look like for opinion writing. We just started it, so we're only on day 2. So this unit is the one that was in my SJT writing club. I did now package it, so it's also in my TPT store, but it's We Can Write Opinions, and lesson 1 is we will understand what an opinion is. So usually the first 5 days of a new genre, we're really diving into what it is, what it looks like and sounds like, and sometimes we will write one together. So here we have opinion writing. Look at the difference between a fact and an opinion. And then we just did a quick little sort. This one was already done, but if you take it out of screenshot mode, we can actually drag these over. So they were all here in the middle. And then what I did is I just read them aloud and we decided if it was a fact or an opinion. Then we played stand up, sit down, where again, we did this yesterday, so they're all over the place. But these were here in the middle. Let me move these back. And each one would come up, and as it would come up, we would stand up if it is a fact, and we would sit down if it's an opinion. So it looked like this. Squares have 4 sides. That's a fact. Everybody stood up. Then math is my favorite. That's an opinion. They would sit down. Spiders have 8 legs. Spiders are scary. Blue is the best color, and so on. And then we just did a fact and opinion sort. This was the kind of the your turn, the independent part, where I'm really just getting students to understand what a fact and an opinion is. And this was important because both with this activity and with this one, students were struggling between like validating their opinion and realizing that just because you agree with that opinion still does not make it a fact, which is pretty tricky for them. So spiders are creepy. Everyone was like, oh wait, that's a fact. Spiders are creepy. And I'm like, nope, that's actually still an opinion. How can you prove that they're creepy? And they would give me all these reasons that they're creepy. But again, if somebody else has the opinion that spiders are cute or spiders are not creepy at all, then it's still just an opinion. So we kind of talked through that. And these, we have a fact and opinion about each of the subjects, so that helped us kind of differentiate between the two. And then also I read each one for students just so they knew where to go. And always at the end, we have our sharing. And then today we again are talking about distinguishing between a fact and an opinion. So we reviewed our anchor chart. Here I read this story all about apples. Apples are my favorite fruit. They grow on trees and start as a seed. And throughout the passage, we talked about how there are both opinions and facts kind of sprinkled in here. So I grabbed the highlighter on the board and I would highlight all the opinions that I heard, and then we would talk about the different facts. Then we read The Perfect Pet, and as we listened for this story, we listened for a bunch of different opinions. I love this mentor text for opinion writing. Not only does it give opinions, but it also gives reasons for the opinion, so it's great to talk about, which we talk about later when we're introducing giving reasons. So we did that, and then we read this story right here. It was similar to the apples one, but it was called Grizzly Bears. And actually, I will say, after we did this, I actually had them write down their own opinion about a pet. I actually had them write 2 sentences. It's not in the slides, but I had them write this in their journal. They had to write 1 positive opinion and 1 negative opinion. Let me tell you why. What I was noticing is when we introduce this unit, we usually start with like positive opinions, my favorite, the best, and all of that. And in The Perfect Pet, the little girl has these positive opinions about like, oh, a horse is the best pet. And then the parents give negative opinions about that same thing. They'll be like, oh, well, a horse is too big. A horse is too smelly. A horse is, cats scratch up everything, whatever it was. So there were positive opinions and negative opinions. So right after we read that story, I had students get out their journal and I had them each write a sentence. They had to write 2 sentences. 1 sentence was a positive opinion about a pet, so they could share what pet they thought was best. And then they would share a negative opinion, which pet they think would be a bad pet. Or some of them wrote down the one that we shared from the story, which is like horses are too big or horses are too smelly or something like that. So they just quickly wrote a positive opinion and a negative opinion. Then I had students go here to Grizzly Bears, and I, of course, read this aloud for them. But as we read, they grabbed a yellow crayon and a green crayon, and we kind of did this all together, and we would highlight the opinions and the facts, and we would distinguish them from one another. And then afterward, they all just drew a picture of one of the facts that they learned. So for the rest of the week, what we're going to be doing is really writing down our own facts and opinions about topics, just so I can make sure they can differentiate. So again, we will review what a fact and opinion is, and we will go ahead and watch this video about awesome ostriches, and then they will have to write down some different facts and opinions they have about that animal. So they will write a fact up here and an opinion, and then they can draw a picture. And we can practice this a few times. So I think we also do this in lesson 4. Yep. Yesterday we watched a video together to help us with our writing. Today we're going to read a story, Flamingo Fun. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to read the story and share facts and opinions about the same topic. And then on day 5, so on Friday of this week, that's when we're going to actually start our first part of our writing process to brainstorm different opinions that we have. And I usually break it up into little categories. So we have the best season or the best dessert. I'll pick a topic and they have to share just some of their favorites. Sometimes I like to do favorite book. That's an easy one. This is a comparison type of opinion. I think blank is better than blank. And then we have I love and I don't like. So they're going to share 4 different opinions, and these lines later are 4 reasons. So right now they're just putting 4 opinions in those top boxes. And then as it goes on, we'll provide our reasons and closing statements. So I'm not going to walk you through the entire slideshow. It's 15 lessons, but that's kind of what we are doing right now as we introduce what opinion writing is and what it should kind of look like and sound like and how it differentiates from facts. So that's where we're at. So by the end of the week, we'll have brainstormed some great topics to write about, and then we'll take one of those topics, and that is where we kind of go through the full writing process, where we will plan out our reasons, plan out an ending. We will go ahead and publish it. We'll spread it across the pages, add some more into it, edit, revise it, and we'll call it a day. That is what our opinion writing looks like. All right, I'm going to do a couple more things now, and then tomorrow I will pop in and share what we're doing in phonics and what we are doing in math. So I will see you then. Hello, hello, happy Wednesday. It is already after school on Wednesday. We had a full busy day today. I don't know if you can see back there. I'm trying to show you. No, you can't see. But my little plants are finally starting to grow. I'll go ahead and insert a little picture here of some of our plants. We just did some grass seed. We're doing a living things unit in science. So we started to plant some grass seed last week, and now they are finally growing, which is really fun, and the kids are so excited. That was the last thing we just did, so that's fresh in my mind. And then, of course, we continued with our opinion writing. We did foundations. We are learning 5 sound words with suffixes, so I'll show you that. And then in math, we are finishing up our numbers within 120 units. So a big number sense kind of place value unit that I will share some of the activities we are doing with that. So that being said, let me flip my camera around. First, I want to show you a little bit about what we're doing in foundations, and then I'll also share some of our WIN activities so you can see how we kind of keep spiraling all that review. If you followed me for a while, you know that during our WIN block, there are 3 main stations that students go throughout the week, technically 4. One is like a reading station, but the other ones are going to spiral different writing activities. They're going to spiral different math skills and different phonics skills. So that way students are continuing to review not only what's taught each week, but also what's previously taught, just to kind of keep up with it. It's one of my favorite ways to spiral things. So let's start with phonics. All right, so I'm pulling up my phonics slides. You know that I've created these to go along with the program Foundations. It helps me teach. Not only are we doing 5 sound words, but we are also introducing during this time our vowel teams. And I've said this before, but Foundations doesn't need students to spell words with vowel teams, but they are expected to be able to read words with vowel teams. So at the beginning of the week, we kind of introduced a few more. These are some of our trickier ones where the sound or the letters will have 2 sounds. So we do snow, plow. So not only will the image show that OW snow O, but OW plow ow. So I'm just gonna flip through a bunch of these so you can kind of see this is just where we practice reading them. And then I teach them also how this makes the ow sound, and we practice decoding words too. So this was the first day of the new skill where lump has 4 sounds. And I explained how we've been really reading and writing words with 4 or less sounds. Now we are going to start with 5 sounds. I just skipped through a bunch of slides because now that we are on week 2, I want to show you what that looks like because that's what we're doing this week. So we always have our review of the sounds, and then I have a student come up and be the vowel teams leader. So they say A-I, bait, and we all say A, A-Y, play, A, E-E, jeep, E, E-A-E-E, and so on. These ones are going to be our tricky 2-sounders. So they say O-W, snow, O, O-W, plow, ow, O-U, trout, ow, O-U, soup, ooh, and then ooh and for book and school. We always review our heart words, and then we have a word of the day, strap. We use a sentence, and then we're always practicing some blending. So twist, spring, slant. You can see these have 5 or more sounds. And then we add them to our journal. This is one of our recent lessons where we showed students how they can read a word with 5 sounds, but it's our base word. We can also add the suffix S. And then we practice not only reading, but also we practice writing some of these words. So here we would say it aloud, blimps. And then students would write it on their whiteboards and markers while somebody came to the board and wrote blimps, stumps, drinks, and I put Jen here because we always talk about how the suffix S, it can make a noun plural, or it can make a verb match the subject. So instead of I drink, Jen drinks. Skunks, and we practiced writing them. Then we did our magnet boards. So really just a bunch of lessons. Today we actually learned about UE, 2 new sounds. It can make oo or u, like blue or rescue. So clue, glue, argue, value. And then we also learned ooh like chew, EW. So chew, flew, screw, new. At least one day a week, there's like a time for like let's have fun or let's play or something in the foundations lessons. And one of them often has you get a word card. So everybody can split up, they'll get a word card. Let's see, we have swish, we have tank. These are ones I used this week. Stuff, play, so some vowel teams, dunk, a lot of glued sounds and a lot of blends. think this one, plants, sometimes with the suffix. So everybody will get a word card, and I tell them to sit quietly and they look at their word. And then on the board, I'll show you where I just click the button. It'll say like, stand up if your word has a suffix S. They have to stand up, read it to the class. We're all like, yes, it does. Or, I don't know, we got to fix that one. So we're all checking each other. Stand up if your word has a digraph. Each time it kind of changes. Sometimes if I don't like the ones that are listed on the board, or if I want to add other ones, I just will. So let me show you what these ones look like. But basically for this, everyone is sitting on the rug with a little word card in their hand. So when this slide comes up, I make sure I pass out all the word cards. And the first one says, stand up if you have a word with a double letter. So the floss rule. Stand up if you have a word with a suffix. Stand up if you have a word with a blend. Stand up if you have a word with a glued sound. So those are the 4 for today's. Now, usually I'll use the same set of cards a couple times throughout that week. On the last day that I do it, I will often give students the word card and I'll have them mark up the word too. Foundations is big into marking. And since we're kind of doing this and they're looking for a specific part of the word, if they had plants, I would have them underline the blend. We have the glued sound and they also sometimes, because ant is still a blend, so they can underline that too. And then underline the base word, circle the suffix S. That's a lot and it looks sloppy here. Marking words is not like my favorite thing to do. There's, newer research around it that's not really necessary, but identifying word parts I am fine with. So we really only do this, pretty much once a unit, because once they get their card, they can do it and then they just can take this card home. So we'll play it one more time and we'll be like, stand up if you have suffix S. This person would stand, point to their S and say the word, and then they just get to take the card home. That's where we are at in phonics, just these basic 5 sound words. Now we're adding, so week 1 is just teaching them how we sound out both decode and encode words with 5 sounds. Week 2 is doing that again, also introducing those vowel teams, but with the suffix S for those 5 sound words. And then next week, week 3 of this unit, we're gonna still focus on those 5 sound words, but we're gonna add not only suffix S, but also ED and ING. So that's really the first time we're getting into a lot of those rules, which will be good for them. So it's really fun this time of year. It's April 9th, and this is when they are really starting to take off with their reading. Even some of my readers that were really struggling for a while, and we felt like we're stuck for a bit on the digraphs and those beginning blends. Now it's like starting to take off. It's really, really fun to see when that light bulb moment just happens. So it's fun. The vowel teams are definitely tricky for students, but again, as they're seeing so many more books and they're really getting ready for that next step, that giving them that explicit knowledge of how those sounds sound, sometimes when there's rules about them, like with EY, for example, I'm looking over at my board. Or let's say for the diphthongs, OI and OY. We talk about how they both make OI, but we often see OY at the end of a word. And we often see OI in the middle of a word or at the beginning of the word. Not always, but just giving them those clues really helps them to decipher all these new words and opens up a whole new world for them. So very fun. Before I show you what we're doing in math, let me just show you our win station so you know what we are reviewing this week. You will know that I keep all my win stations over here every single week. So I'll grab our independent packet. I will grab a writing packet, and I will grab our math game. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's start with math. This is a game that I believe I shared before during our place value unit. It's 10 more, 10 less cover up, and it's the same exact game, except the numbers are now larger. I love this game for getting students to understand 10 more and 10 less and place value. So all students do is spin the spinner, whatever they land on, 68, let's say. They cannot color 68. 68 will not be in the grid. Instead, they can pick if they want to color 10 more than 68, 78, or 10 less than 68, 58. And they just color that in with their crayon or colored pencil, and then their partner goes. So they just go back and forth until this grid is filled in, and whoever has colored the most wins. For writing, I have pretty much only been using my mini writing lessons, the monthly ones, just because they're themed and they work great. I have about 7 lessons for every single month, and so it's just enough because I only need 4 for every month. So we are learning that Earth Day is at the end of the month, and so students watch a video or read a book about Earth Day. I always link it in Seesaw. And the unit that I use for this, I have all the books linked and everything for you, so you know which books I'm using. And then I always have a word bank down here where students need to write at least 2 facts that they learned from the video or 2 ways to save our Earth. And then for our independent station, which always has some phonics work along with some math work, they are here doing words with 5 sounds. So this is just from a TPT pack. I usually just kind of look through whatever resources I have and print out a couple worksheets. So these first 2 are from Humble Beginnings, 2017. And they go along with the skills that are in Foundations. So they will read the word here. You can see most of them are 5 sound words, splash, and then they have to write it down. So they're reading and then writing. The next one reviews the heart words any and many, which we learned. So they have to figure out which word any or many goes in the blank. And then they draw a picture they draw a line to the picture that matches. And then their last page for independent work is right here, comparing numbers to 120. So all they're going to do here is put the symbol in to review, which is something we've been doing in math. All right, so for math, we've really been talking about numbers within 120. This is a relatively quick unit because students are pretty familiar with place value at this point. You can watch my video here where I talk about how we introduce place value with numbers within 50. So that unit and how we did that really sets the groundwork for what we're doing in this unit, making this unit quite a bit faster, right? So we are reviewing what place value is. We are just now adding in that hundreds place. So all I really do with students the first couple days are just show them some 3-digit numbers, and we talk about what the value of each of those digits is. So if we have the number 113 and I underline the tens place, I'm like, what does this 1 really mean? It means that there's 110, it means 10, and I'll hold up like a base 10 block, a rod or whatever you call it. And then I show them what the 100, the flat, looks like. So we're doing a lot of that kind of visual and then getting students to build these numbers before we head into comparing them and ordering them. And then with comparing and ordering, I'm really teaching them to look at the highest place value first to compare the numbers and then move backwards, right? So if we see that there's a number 100, it has a 100 in a 1 in the hundreds place versus the number 75, we don't even have 100. So I don't even have to look further. I can see that because there's a 100, that is going to be more, right? And then we talk about, okay, what if the numbers were 73 and 75? We have to look at the tens place first. Those are the same. That's the highest value place, right? Now we need to go to the ones place. 73, I said 75, whatever. One of them will actually, I'll build it on the rug and we say, this one has less ones than 75, so I know it must be smaller. So we do a lot of that visual to really kind of prove how we know a number is bigger and smaller, because a lot of my students will just be like, I know, it's just bigger. And sometimes they'll say like, okay, when I count, it's higher, and like that's a valid reason, but I can't just have them say, I just know it, I just know it. They love to say that. So I'm like, well, here's a way you can actually prove it. If you were to build it or you were to draw it, you could take a look and see that this number has more tens or this number has more ones or whatever the case. So let me just share a few of my favorite activities that we do in this unit. I just want to point out too, this is not one of my favorite activities. This is a practice page that we do, but I know I was just sharing kind of about the value and what that looks like. So here's an example. I say, look at the underlined digit and then draw the line to match. For example, 79. I'm wondering what that 7 actually stands for. 70, so they would just draw a line, boop, to 70. 61, that 6 is not 6, that 6 is 60. Let's see, 48, that 8 is not 80, it's not 800, it's just a solid 8. It means there's 8 ones. One of my favorite activities to pull out during this unit is arrow paths. I have done this game, I think ever since I lived in Vegas. I think that's the first time I ever heard about it. So we're talking like 15, 16 years ago. So here, this is how it works. Basically, you have a 120 chart and students have to solve the arrow path. So we will pick a number and then I have my students start with just 3 arrows. So up, right, right. And they have to figure out what is on the other end of this path. So if they start at 25 and then they go up, right, right, it's 17. Now, this seems pretty simple, but what I like about this game is as we make this a little harder, we practice this every day, I want students to internalize what going up and right actually means. And then we take away the 120 chart. So then I should be able to give students an arrow path like 25, up, right, right. And they're like, wait, okay, if they go up, you're subtracting 10, 15, 16, 17. So it's just a really fun way to get students used to these numbers, used to this type of tool that students really love. So I just give them a couple at first and they can come up and they draw the path. And then I have students go off with a partner, and for 8 minutes, they get to go ahead and practice doing arrow paths with students. Now, I definitely have them with their partner start with only 3 arrows. That's the rule at first. And then when there's like a minute left, I say, okay, you can go up to 4 arrows. And then when I pull them back to this screen and I have like a blank, or I have a blank one here so they can't see it. Then I put up a new one and I take away that 120 chart and we see what that answer is. So again, kind of just scaffolding it, and it's just a fun activity for them to get used to these numbers. Another activity that we do, I did this one yesterday, is just called Flip and Compare. So again, you'll know I love a good mystery bag. Students will get bags of numbers, and these are what the numbers look like. These are from, I have a really old numbers to 120 unit, and inside they just have number cards that we would use quite a bit. So I printed out 3 pages of the number cards, basically from 60 to 120, and I just put them in baggies for students. And then I'll show you how we play, but basically they're gonna flip and they're gonna compare. For this game, all I had students do is I didn't put them in a brown paper bag just because there's so many cards in here. And I only made, I had students work in 3s for this, so just so I didn't have to make a bunch of cards. So all they do is close their eyes, they pick a card, and they would write 79 on their recording sheet. The recording sheet I just showed you, it's a bunch of boxes with the circle in the middle because they're gonna write both numbers and compare it using the symbol. And obviously we have already taught this. We have gone over it with the class. So this is their like practice opportunity. So I've already taught them to look at the tens place first and then go to the ones. So 79, and then the other person pulls one out, 102. So 79 and 102. So we both write our own number and then we take turns comparing them. So for this one, let's say I'll go and I'll draw the symbol in, they check it, we leave the cards. I also tell them, whoever has the higher card gets to keep them. So if I got 102, I would keep it. Next, pull another one, 101 and 67. So they pull the 2 cards, we write down our own number, they compare, whoever had 101 would keep it. Very simple. Again, I give them about 8 to 10 minutes just to practice, and I can walk around and see how it's going. I've shared this before, but always when students are doing their kind of partner work or their game or their activity, this is my chance. Not only do I walk around and see how everyone's doing, but if I know that I have a pair of students that, or like, 3 or 4, however many, my small group of students that might be struggling with this is when I play the game with them at the back table, and we are always using manipulatives. So this is where we can really look at each one. I might underline the tens place and compare, build it, just so they understand how it's really working. And then we can also use these same cards. We're going to use them tomorrow in the same way, except instead of just comparing, they're actually going to pull 4 cards. And after they pull all 4 cards, they have to put them in order from least to greatest. Or you can switch it up, make it greatest to least. So we definitely use these cards a few times throughout this unit. So there you have just a little rundown of what we are doing. Writing, we finished up poetry last week and we are well into opinion writing. They're doing great with that. Phonics, we are doing our 5 sound words, and in math, we are comparing, ordering, and understanding numbers up to 120 before we dive into our big addition and subtraction unit next week. So that'll be fun. And then in science, we're doing our plants. Reading, we are just following the HMH curriculum right now. So we're actually finishing up module 7, I believe it is, and we will start module 8 next week. So not too much detail there. It's a very basic kind of basal that we go over. So it is nice because right now the main kind of theme of the unit is about like living things and how do things in nature change. And some of the words are cycle, evaporation, liquid. So it is a little sciencey, and it kind of brings in a little bit about our plants. But I actually think unit 8, it might be unit 8 or unit 9, I have to look ahead, but I think unit 8 really talks about plants even more. So it will tie in. I think I said this before too, but I'm excited for next year to be able to align the science modules, the science and social studies modules with HMH in the units that we're doing, because we can really do those modules anywhere, the different standards we have to teach for science and social studies. So it'd be very nice if it aligns with what we're actually doing in reading too. You know, it just works. So that's the plan for next year. That is my video for today. I kind of went through everything we're doing. As always, I will link anything we used here or anything I talked about. I'll link it down below. If I forget, please just let me know in the comments and I will quickly try to grab that link for you. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new video. See you in the next one. Bye.